that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. If you're in Brattleboro, otherwise you'd have to go to whoever your town clerk or other source is. Mm-hmm. Joan and Becca are running for Senate, and they're going to sit in and comment on the news as it comes up. So we'll start out every day. I start at about 4 o'clock in the morning and look at the news that's come in over the last 24 hours, and I put these up at my blog spot, which is geoharvey.wordpress.com. You can go there and look at these. And I also write for Green Energy Times, so a lot of this influences the writing there. So we'll start with last Friday, August 15th. This from thelocal.de, which is a giveaway that it's German. In Germany, wind generation of electricity rose by 66% in the first 6 months of the year as capacity was added before incentives were scaled back on the 1st of August. Schleswig-Holstein.
Say it again, I love
it. Do you want me to say something in Welsh? I said that wrong. Sounds like Klingon.
God bless you.
Means, would you like some more of this excellent pork? My favorite sentence is Pui Adi Hunu, which means who is that man? And the reason why it's my favorite is because of the spelling. Pui is P-W-Y, Adi is Y-D-Y, and Hunu is H-W-N-N-W. You've got an entire sentence without a single vowel. Actually, in Welsh it has vowels. But okay, anyway.
We do digress.
We do digress. We do that a lot. Schleswig-Holstein, which is profiting from its North Sea winds, as it has constructed 159 wind turbines this year. The next one comes from the Japan Times. In a set of papers published Thursday, that means a week ago today, or the 14th of August, in the Journal of Heredity, a U.S. publication, Japanese and U.S. scientists warned that radioactive materials released from the core meltdowns at Fukushima Daiichi could have caused abnormalities in the genes of nearby birds and insects.
There's a couple of them up there.
Oh dear.
Oh my goodness.
It's not
the
good.
one on the left is okay, the one on the right's deformed.
Oh well, we can get past that, I hope. Saturday, August 16th, I was going to say October, and a little ahead of schedule. This from Clean Technica. Sharp has launched an energy storage system aimed at large individual consumers that could, quote, dramatically cut utility demand charges, end quote. The smart storage energy solution stores a large amount of electricity in reserve and releases it selectively. I don't know exactly what selectively means.
Could mean several things.
Yeah, I think what it means is that
as you need it, sort of.
Yeah, I think. Anyway, we've got Sharp up there on the screen.
It's interesting here because there's a lot of people working on energy storage right now.
Yeah.
It's getting sexy.
Goodness gracious! Who would have thought a battery was sexy?
and people are developing and thinking, and new old ways and old new ways are coming back. And
the
energy
train
storage
that goes up the hill and is brought back down again.
Say again?
The train drag up the hill.
They're actually doing that. They run this train full of weight up a hill, and it comes back down using regenerative braking to generate power.
And of course, they're using cheap grid wholesale electricity to run it back up.
They run it up at night when electricity's cheap,
right?
And they run the train down during the day. This is just an experimental thing, but it can be done.
I mean, they've been doing this for 40 years at Northfield Mountain, pumping water.
Well, they don't have a train, but it's the same darn thing.
That plant has its maximum output is double the maximum output of VY. It's a big plant, over 1,000 megawatts, and they just buy cheap power and use it to pump water up to the top of a mountain and run it down when the power prices are high. That was from Clean Technica. From The Hill, we have this, also on Saturday. A federal appeals court ruled that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission was within its rights to require electric utilities to make regional transmission plans. The plans mandate that the regional planning for new transmission infrastructure account for renewable energy integration. That's an important
Basically,
issue.
some of the utilities are dragging their feet here.
Yeah.
And there was a court case, and it, I guess, got appealed, and it's the result of the appeal. And they're basically saying, you guys have to start planning for distributed energy, because it's coming.
Yeah.
You may not be happy about it, but it's coming.
Yeah. The same day from Renewable Energy Focus.
Oh, here's a good one.
We got this one. This is fun.
This is a good one.
DVO, that's a company, announced the first anaerobic digester installation in California. First. Each day, the digester will receive 55,000 gallons of solid and liquid waste from a nearby dairy farm with approximately 2,000 head of cattle. It will reduce the farm's greenhouse gas emissions by 90% and provide power. Now, one of the things to point out here is we've got 15 of these things in Vermont.
Exactly.
Right. This is the first in California.
Yeah, Jeanette White was here in the second segment of this show that was filmed first.
There's a diagram up there of what anaerobic digestion really means.
Yeah, she said that the first one had been built in Vermont before she became a senator 12 years ago. And basically what's happening here is that manure, other waste, which could be agricultural waste, but it could also be food waste or municipal waste, is going into a biodigester.
Great big bubble, great big vat.
Now it makes methane, which is a terrible greenhouse gas, but you can burn it to make carbon dioxide, and which is much less. It's much less unkind to the environment and electrical power. So
We got a picture coming up in a little while which shows this thing in reality.
Great.
I mean, this is a nice diagram, but
Right.
we'll take a look at a real one.
okay, that was on the 16th. On Sunday, the 17th, we got this. Renewable energy resources generated 38% of the electricity consumed in Spain in July. Almost 30% of the total electric demand was generated by wind energy projects, while 4% came from solar, photovoltaic, and 4% came from concentrated solar. That from Clean Technica. This is interesting to me because this is just, I don't know if this is the 5th or the 6th time or whatever, that we had similar reports to this. And up until about 2 years ago, the fossil fuel industry and their cohorts were pointing out that we could never go above 20% from wind because it would stress the grid too much. And it's beautiful because the more you add of this intermittent power, the cheaper everything gets. Oh dear.
Well, that refutes one of the questions that because it's intermittent, it's not valuable.
Right.
Yeah, well.
Right, which we hear a lot.
And as I said, if it's going into the grid, it's replacing something that's more expensive.
Yes.
So it's a benefit. It's being used.
Right.
Yeah, and we had that thing a week or two ago where somebody was saying that they had done research on the average electric bill in Texas, and had found that out of the $128 bill, 4.3 cents went to covering for the backup costs for renewable power, and about 75 cents went to covering the backup costs for big baseload power plants. Because when they go down, everything goes down, and it's a big problem.
It sounds like a huge difference, and it is 4 cents to 75 cents. But you're considering a couple of cents on a $20 to $50 bill,
well,
or more. You know, so it's not affecting you that much.
Yeah, and the other thing too that we should bear in mind is that wind only produces about a quarter or less of the power, and it's less than a quarter of the power in Texas. So we have to do that comparison of 4.5 cents to 75 cents, bearing in mind that the 4.5 cent is really is really only about a quarter of the 75.
Yeah, that's true too.
The cost of the big grid plants is about 4 times that of the cost of wind. A good example of why this happens: in Western Australia, a 700 megawatt coal burning plant went down unexpectedly. The cost of power jumped over a period of 5 minutes from 65 or 75, I forget how much, but it was $65 or $75 per megawatt hour to $11,000 per megawatt hour in 5 minutes. And then it came back down again over the next 10 minutes to only $2,000.
That is the wholesale cost of power. It didn't affect the individual user.
Right.
Well,
but it indirectly did because it affected the utility company who had to pay that price. And they just try to normalize it. So they didn't have a good balance sheet that month.
I wouldn't think so.
Probably not. This is one I love. Tesla has announced what they call the, quote, infinite mile warranty.
Oh, yeah.
The infinite mile warranty is for the drive units of 85 kilowatt hour Model S's. And it isn't just for the first owner, but for anyone the Model S might be sold to. And it also applies retroactively. They are guaranteeing the drive systems in these cars for as long as that car lasts.
Well, it's 8 years. What, unlimited miles.
Unlimited miles. Okay, so it's 8 years.
So if you can do a couple of 100,000 miles in 8 years,
which
you're covered.
Do.
And it's covering the essential part of that car. You got to realize that they don't have spark plugs, they don't have carburetors. You know, all they got is a motor. They don't even have a transmission.
They don't even have a gas tank.
They don't even have a gas tank.
What kind of backwards car is this? And it doesn't have a gas tank. Oh well.
And what's the current price of a base model Tesla?
I honestly don't know. I think it's about $65,000. It's in that range. I think you can get a stripped Tesla for 55 or 60.
But the 85 kilowatt hour is the higher price battery. So it's
I looked this one up because I was having trouble. But the 60 kilowatt hour Model S is about 302 horsepower, and the 85 kilowatt hour Model S is 416 horsepower. So these cars are peppy.
Right.
Yeah, they're peppy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drag Times has shown, that's a magazine. Drag Times has shown that Model S can complete the quarter mile in just 12.3 seconds. That's nothing. Go from 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. 0 to 60. You're gonna outdrive that trooper.
The only way I could compete against that would be if I rode my bike out an airplane door. And the automotive industry is basically saying that's what we are going to be doing in the future.
Right.
Because General Motors and Ford are both pushing electric cars, and as a matter of fact, they're also.
Let's give it up for Ford right now. I drive a Ford assembled in Michigan. Okay, that's my last.
They are.
That's the commercial for the show.
Okay. They're also pushing to stop carbon emissions. They're pushing governments to stop. They're one of the organizations which is on the other side of the fence from Koch Industries, and so I think we're seeing a chink in the armor of that particular group. I mean the people who are in favor of keeping our carbon emissions going. Okay, let's see. Where were we?
Citigroup.
Tesla, after Tesla. Yeah.
Oh yes, Tesla. Okay, on Monday, August 18th, we heard this from Clean Technica. Leading investment bank Citigroup has painted an incredibly bright future for solar energy across the globe, arguing that its rapid expansion will be driven by, quote, pure economics, end quote, and the growing need for diversity. Interesting.
So this is basically Wall Street talking.
That's Wall Street talking, and we've got something else from Citigroup later, I think. We will get to it. If we do, I might be wrong. Next, from Euractiv, Europe's aging nuclear fleet will undergo more prolonged outages over the next few years, reducing the reliability of the power supply and costing plant operators many millions of dollars. The 28-nation bloc's 131 reactors are well past their prime with an average age of 30 years. Of course, that's a little bit younger than the U.S. reactors. That means we're in even worse trouble.
We're in even worse trouble, yeah. Yeah, these things are geriatric.
They're geriatric.
Geriatric generators.
Which produce nuclear waste, regardless of whether you use the power or not. Okay, and also on the same date, last Monday, from the Casper Star Tribune Online, the largest proposed onshore wind project in the United States does not need a recently expired federal tax credit to be commercially viable. The head of the company planning to build the 1,000 turbines in Carbon County said, Carbon County,
Yeah,
don't you love
Carbon.
it?
Over Gillette.
This last
That
week.
refutes what you were saying. Without subsidies, we
Right.
wouldn't have any of these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a. Not only are they building a 1,000 generator plant in Wyoming,
That's big.
where are you going to sell that power? Well, they're going to put in a transmission line specially to take it to San Diego.
California.
Yeah. So, I find that whole thing really, really.
It's mind-bending. I
It
would.
is.
I couldn't conceive of something like that 10 years
You know,
ago.
one of the things I did in the last week was that I looked at wind power plants in the United States. The third largest one is called Roscoe Farm, I think, or something like. The name is Roscoe, and it's right in the middle of Texas, and you can see it from Google Earth.
Oh, yeah.
You can go in there and you can see the
You can
individual
see-
wind turbines.
Okay.
And when you do, each turbine has got a little white space around its base where
Yeah.
vehicles come up so
Yep.
people can service them. And there's a service road running among them, so they're stretched out in a more or less straight line, not exactly straight. And then among them, you find these things where there's much, much bigger white spaces where vehicles have been. And when you look closely at them, some of them there's nothing there. Some of them there's a black patch next to them. And some of them have things that look a little bit like medieval trebuchets in there. And they are oil pumps. And they are just a mess by comparison. They take up a lot of space. But there are whole communities that are inside that wind farm. There are high schools inside that wind farm. There are people, farms inside the wind farm. That wind farm covers 100,000 acres, and it has parts of over 400 farms in it. And they're still farming. Cotton is still being
I don't
farmed.
think the cotton cares.
I don't think the cotton does either. But they are not farming among all those oil rigs.
Right.
Well, yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Duh.
Okay. On Tuesday, August 19th, we got this. The Renewable Energy Policy Network for the 21st century says the world now gets 22% of its energy from renewable sources.
What was that source again, George?
Renews, R-E-N-E-W-S. You can find this at my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, looking at the August 19th entry. And the renewables accounted for 56% of last year's investments in new power generating capacity worldwide, beating fossil fuels for the fourth year in a row.
So
Interesting.
this is all the new stuff that's going in
Worldwide.
worldwide.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very heavy in renewables.
And actually, it's not just beating fossil fuels, but it's beating fossil fuels plus nuclear.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. From Green Tech Media, we got this. A just-released Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory report pegs the utility-scale wind power purchase agreement pricing at an average of $25 per megawatt hour for projects that were negotiated contracts in 2013. That is cheap power.
You know, it's confusing to have it quoted as a megawatt hour or
Yeah.
a kilowatt hour.
Yep.
You pay your electric bill by the kilowatt hour. That's
Right.
2.5 cents.
So if they were getting 100%
That's the wholesale
markup,
price.
you would be
Right.
paying 4.6 cents instead of what we are paying, which in my case is 19 cents.
Well, you're paying more for cow
I'm
power.
paying extra for cow power.
Good for you.
There you go. That's my one luxury in life.
Methane is his one luxury. Now there's a good quote.
Now that's a man who walks his talk.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't have a car. I ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is I do both because, no, I don't do the cow power because I'm dirt poor, but the bicycle is because I'm dirt poor. Oh, well. Okay. From Clean Technica, on the same day we have this, 2 1,117 megawatt nuclear power plants being constructed at the VC Summer Nuclear Power Station in Fairfield County, South Carolina. Electric and gas company 55% and state-owned Santine Power 45% have fallen behind schedule.
Way behind schedule.
Yeah, causing a drop in SCE&G's credit rating to negative. What do you think of that?
There's a picture up there. The picture didn't come out well for some reason when I transposed it.
Oh, well, it came out badly enough that you can see that.
Well,
it's
you can see this is the brand new plant they're constructing,
Right.
and it's huge. It's huge.
It's huge.
And aside from the fact that it's cleaner, it's not very much prettier than some of the stuff you see up there in the oil sands.
Sure.
Yes.
But what you're missing in this picture is what surrounds it. It's all forested land. This was wild country before they decided to
Blow away the mountaintops and put in wind power, right?
Yeah, right. So you know, it's South Carolina. It's right near the sea because you can see. Well, you can't see it, but I know it's there in the upper left corner.
Don't they get a lot of hurricanes there?
They get,
Yeah, they do.
They get a lot
Yeah,
of
they do.
stuff in
Yeah.
South Carolina.
I actually have a brother who lives in Aiken, South Carolina.
Oh, okay. You got a lot of brothers, don't you, Jim?
5.
5 brothers.
And they
No
live
wonder
from
you're running for
Seattle
Senate.
to South Carolina.
What was that? George?
No wonder she's running for Senate.
Aiken
With 5 brothers.
is a big chemical town, isn't it? Something like that. What's going on in Aiken?
I don't think it's a big chemical town, no. It's not a big town, dear.
Well, I know my
It's up the road
my
from
roommate in
Beaufort.
college was from Aiken, and he was down there. His father was sent down there for DuPont or somebody like that.
I don't know. A lot of the people in Aiken work in Savannah at like Kimberly-Clark.
Okay.
It's real close to Savannah.
Well, let's just keep going if you don't mind. Wednesday, August 20th, that was yesterday.
Oh, this is a biggie.
Yeah. According to analysis produced by Lori, I can't say that name, Virta, I can pronounce it in Welsh.
I didn't keep the name. I didn't keep the name down.
Country this is from. And Greenpeace International in the first half of the year, China's coal use dropped for the first time this century, while the country's gross domestic product actually grew. This is from Energy Collective.
Is this when we'll get to cheer?
Yeah, this.
That's why we're here, so we can cheer?
Right.
Yay, yay.
Yeah,
All
right.
right.
And so what are
I
the
missed that one.
reasons
You missed
behind
which?
that?
Huh?
What are the reasons?
The premier of China has declared war on coal,
War on coal.
and they have decided they're going to start closing the coal
Oh, there it
plants
is.
in the
There
area
it
around Peking, Beijing, and this is a very serious thing that they're undertaking. In the meantime, of course, the Australians are banking their farms on coal as the the head of
Betting their farm.
betting their
Yeah.
farm on
Right.
coal because the Chinese need coal, and
And the Chinese are saying we don't want it anymore.
and they're producing their own coal, so they're reducing their load. There's an interesting thing that comes
We've
later.
got a couple of good graphs
about
up
this.
there. You can see the one on the left. GDP is growing,
Yeah,
but the demand for coal is not.
the demand for coal
And
actually
that's
is low.
significant.
Yeah.
And of course, what happens is, as they are putting in more and more and more solar and wind, that demand is going to continue to go down. And they are putting in solar and wind at a rate that is absolutely stunning. They are so far ahead of the United States on this, it's crazy. And, our leadership in Washington would prefer that the Chinese be ahead of us for some reason.
I
that
couldn't find
don't
this.
understand. But the Pentagon would straighten them out if they'd listen to it.
I couldn't find this one because I had something else up here,
Oh,
but it was
okay.
something that I found that you didn't catch. Then I brought it up.
Oh, okay.
It's about the Koch brothers' stranglehold on offshore wind power, and they're spending a lot of money directly and through ALEC and through their tremendously efficient lobbying organization. And when I first saw this, I said, holy cow, the Kochs are starting to invest in offshore wind power. No, they're doing everything they can to block it.
Yeah. They want to make sure that they keep making as much money as they possibly can. They're worth billions of dollars, and they haven't figured out how they can spend that much, so they want to get more.
They're worth $80 billion.
How many of them are there?
2.
Well, there's
three, but there's two of them that are active.
There's 2, David and Charles, and each of them are worth 40 and 41 billion.
But the one who was attacking Cape Wind was a third one.
Yeah, it's William.
I don't know.
That's Cape Wind.
The invisible Koch brother.
Yeah, this.
See, every time I'm on something, I learn.
Yeah, I know.
Every time.
Yeah.
The invisible one must be the most powerful one.
No, he's the one that was kind of excluded from the family because he
wasn't nasty enough.
Their father decided that he was effeminate, so he taught the other children to fight.
Oh.
This was a very, I don't know, I feel sad for people who are the victim of that kind of thing, but, that's what it was, apparently.
Have you talked often about China and what's going on in China right now? They're building cities at a pace.
Nobody in them.
No one's in them. My sister just came back from China because I had a niece living there for a year in Nanchang, and my sister said, I didn't realize this, that in Beijing, there are people who were born and died there who never ever saw the stars.
Because of the smog.
Because of the smog. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I learn, like I said, every day. But she said it was so eerie because they took a 12-hour train trip southwest towards Shanghai to Nanchang, where my niece was living. And she said, Joni, there are these huge cities and nobody lives there. So, I always remind myself, I live on one small planet.
Yes.
And the wind that blows is affecting all of us.
The thing that I tell people is there's no such thing as not being downwind from a nuclear power plant. It's just another way of saying the same thing. This is from Clean Technica, and it's really disturbing. In Australia, Queensland businesses with their own renewable resources are being hit by service charges of up to $500 a day on their electric bills in a move the solar industry says is designed to kill the rollout of commercial-scale rooftop solar across the state. That's from Clean Technica. Anybody who hears about this should understand the government of Australia and most or all of the states of Australia, those governments are being controlled by groups that are at least fiscally conservative, but also beholden to the fossil fuel industry, and they are trying as hard as they can to get the rollout of renewable energy of all kinds stopped for the good of the coal industry. And they've actually admitted that they want to go after coal. They want Australia to be the center of cheap coal for the world.
And they're working hard for it.
Yeah.
But the rest of the world isn't cooperating.
Well, the rest of the world, actually, the last I heard, their hope, and this is something that is to some extent corroborated by the countries in Africa, their hope is that they can continue selling in Africa. But I don't think that's going to go on much longer, because building a large coal-burning power plant takes years.
And Africa is solarizing real rapidly.
Yeah, and they've got to have a power grid to distribute that power. And the easiest way to deal with energy in a place where 90% of the people are rural and 90% of them have got no electricity is to bring it in on a town by town, village by village, hamlet by hamlet, even farm by farm basis, with solar on the roof, on the yard, in the fields, and battery backup if you need backup, which a lot of people have never had electricity, and having a simple 12-volt battery would be enough to keep them going all night. So
absolutely. I mean, what do they need? A light? They need a television set?
Well,
you got to recharge that phone.
The thing that I've heard,
they are using phones heavily.
Definitely.
As you know,
people in India are saying, "We've got electricity, we've got a light bulb, we've got a fan."
And a kid can stay up at night and study.
That's right.
And this is also going to affect the culture.
Oh,
because as we know
in
India right now, there are still a lot of domestic violence issues.
Yes.
There's so much going on. This alone is going to bring, I think, I can't think of a better word, but enlightenment. It's going to raise the awareness of folks and really help to create better respect for each other.
Right. Joan, about 3 years ago, I got involved with Wiki Answers, and I started answering. And they said, you know, you're doing this so much. Maybe you should be one of our supervisors. So I became one of their supervisors. And as a new supervisor, novice supervisor, I saw flags being raised on one answer after another because there were phone numbers embedded in them. And so I thought, what in the world is this? There have been 5 or 6 of these things in the last 5 or 6 minutes. So I went to them, and they were lists. Each answer was an answer to a bogus question. And the answer typically had the names and telephone numbers of about 400 prostitutes in one of their big cities. They were listing literally thousands of phone numbers where you could get a hold of these girls. You were talking about abuse. That's the level of abuse they've got. If you can put some money, some resources, some energy, some reason for a person to stay, a way to eat, a way to sleep, a way to have dignity into the rural communities of India, you're going to save thousands of lives. You're going to make millions of lives healthier and happier.
Yes.
And all it is just a solar panel, a simple battery, a light bulb, and a fan, and a radio or a telephone and a cell phone.
Yes.
It's just amazing what you could do. And, you know, the level of abuse, people are being bought and sold, literally.
Literally.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And we have a little of that here in Vermont.
We have a small amount.
Yes,
Yeah,
we do have it, especially on the New York side of the state.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago when there was a big bust in Essex Junction, where a bunch of girls had been brought in from Asia, and they were just kind of locked into a building.
And it's a little bit of a challenge still in Bennington, Rutland.
Oh, I do remember hearing about Bennington.
Yeah, it was in the news again last week. So
Okay.
a little off the energy grid, but
yeah, well, you know,
but
energy.
it's all interconnected.
If you can give people not a claim to wealth, just a reasonable amount of dignity.
Absolutely.
You know? And the
Yes.
energy is important for that.
Yes.
Our next from Penn Energy. Demand for renewable electricity and power generation capacity is growing at an unprecedented rate in the Asia-Pacific region. Cumulative investment in microgrids across the region will total $30.8 billion from 2014 to 2023, according to Navigant Research Report.
It's happening as we just spoke in Africa too.
Exactly, it is.
It's the same kind of phenomenon here.
Yep.
I think they're a little bit more advanced in Asia because they're connecting these guys together in microgrids.
Right, and also Asians have a significantly greater amount of money to approach this kind of situation. Okay, we're up to today. Believe it or not, August 21st, Thursday, the European Commission now expects final power demand in 2020 to be 11% lower than they did in 2009. The Commission has prepared 3 growth scenarios for wind power with growth projection ranging from 41% to 85.9% by 2020. 85.9% growth in wind power in Europe is big. When you consider,
it's big anywhere.
Yeah,
That's a lot of growth.
that's a lot of growth. I mean, we've had years where solar power in the United States grew by that much.
Have we?
Yeah. 85%, absolutely. That was from Maritime Journal. From oilprice.com, World Energy Markets, this is the other one from Citigroup, will soon enter a period of, quote, extreme flux, end quote, according to a new report out from Citigroup. The report paints a bleak picture for the future of the oil industry while predicting massive growth in the renewables sector.
Yep.
Oilprice.com. Do you think this is scaring people?
Well, it's Wall Street talking.
It sure is.
And Wall Street always goes where they know the money's going to be.
Yeah, this is one of the things that people have to understand. There are certain places where you can get information, and there are certain places where you can't, and you have to be very discriminating. You do not want to get information from the Heritage Foundation. But another place you don't want to get information from is the Energy Information Administration, which is part of the US DOE. And the reason is because, for whatever reason, I don't know why, those people are constrained to make all of their projections based on the idea that Congress will not change anything. And so they're basing their projections on the idea that any support that's given to the renewable energy industry, all of which, by the way, has terminal dates on it, will terminate at the end of that time, and that the support that's given to the fossil fuels industry, which, by the way, has no terminal dates, will not be terminated. And so they show lines that kind of go like this, up for renewable power, and then over like that.
So we're cooking the books.
The books are being cooked there. But when you want to get good information, go to somebody who's got a vested interest in being correct. And Wall Street has got a vested interest in being correct, unless it's the actual investors. In that case, you know, Koch Industries is invested in renewable power, in fossil fuels, so they're not going to say anything good about renewable power. Citigroup is interested in attracting new customers based on their correct projections. They have got...
That's why they're doing what they're doing.
Exactly. Now, from Clean Technica, during July, 100% of U.S. utility-scale power installations were from renewables.
Well, it's only 1 month, but it's still significant.
Yeah. So far this year...
We celebrate when we can.
We can celebrate a lot, because it's not the first month this year that happened. So far this year, 25.8% of installations were utility-scale solar. 25.1% were utility-scale wind. With biomass, geothermal, and hydropower, the total for renewables on the utility-scale basis comes to 53.8%. The rest is nearly all natural gas. But this, bear in mind, this is just utility-scale.
Yep, those are the big guys.
People who are going after their own energy resources are not going after natural gas. They're not going after...
No, they don't have access to it.
They don't have access to it. I've known one person in my entire life who had personal access to natural gas. And that was because he bought a farm in upstate New York, and shortly after he got it, somebody said, "Would you mind if we drilled a well here?" It's just a little well. But if we strike gas, we'll drill several more, and you'll get an income from the lease, and also you'll get everything that comes from this well, regardless of what, and it's free.
Wow.
So he had a house in which everything was powered by gas. And
Gas lights?
Gas lights. No, actually, I don't know how the lights were done, but they were powered by gas. I don't think they were gas lights. I think they were electric, but his refrigerator was powered
Refrigerator
by gas.
was gas, yep.
And how you get refrigeration from a flame, I finally followed that one down, you know, doing the engineering that was necessary to figure it all out.
It's baffling.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Tell us about it, because I know it works.
Well, let's see. How about if I get through the news, because we've only got one more issue here, and then I can tell you.
I'll let you do that.
Okay, from Clean Technica, in just 3 years, new numbers tell us more than half the states in the United States may have rooftop solar available at the same price or lower than local grid electric rates. Half the states in the United States.
We're talking within 3 years.
Not even considering state and local incentives.
Did it tell us which states?
Well, Vermont is already there.
Yes.
We know that. Half the states.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah, I got a map there that shows the...
Can I look over your shoulder?
We'll look up the... Yeah.
I can see better here.
Better here. I can too.
Remember, I'm over 60. Okay, let me adjust this.
But
oh, fantastic.
Vermont's not one of them.
Vermont is one of them.
Vermont is one of the near term, 1 to 3 years. New York, all of New England except Vermont is now. Vermont is within 3 years.
They're already wrong, because Vermont is already there.
Already there.
Actually, no. You know what? I just realized. They are probably right, because they're talking about rooftop.
Rooftop, exactly.
Ground-mounted solar is already cheaper in Vermont. It's rooftop.
Rooftop solar.
We're really close, because you can get ground-mounted.
Look at this, though, all in here. Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Isn't it? And of course, the rest of the states are going to be following very, very quickly. So,
you know, liquid sunlight has a finite life. We know it's going away.
yes, that's right.
So you can fight all you want. And what do we always do? We work from our fears.
Yeah.
Big business works from fear.
Or from profit.
Well,
If we can overcome the fear, then the profit becomes absolutely the incentive. And of course, what we're seeing here, I think, is that the profit motive is going to become extremely powerful in the United States in the shift to renewables, which is why Citigroup basically said the oil industry is in trouble. And you know what? After oil, it's going to be natural gas, because the natural gas numbers are not really working out the way that they said. Marcellus is getting bigger, and Bakken is, I think, getting bigger, but all the rest of the natural gas plays in the United States are declining.
Well, the peak oil folks have been saying for years that the low-hanging fruit has been picked.
gone.
Yep.
So that everything they're coming out now, all the new developments
We
are
wouldn't be
more
doing tar
costly.
sands and the terrible fracking.
Yeah.
If that weren't true.
The fracking costs $2 a gallon just to get the oil out of the ground. Who's going to pay for that? It's going to be paid for at the pump. As a matter of fact, you're going to have to pay a premium, because that's going to get marked up by the time it gets to you. And what I'm seeing is the price of oil is not going to go down. It's only going to go up.
Yes.
And from the current rates, I have no idea where it's going to go in the next 5 years, but I would not be at all surprised to be talking $10 a gallon.
I agree.
So what do we got there, Tom?
This is exciting.
The number of households with rooftop solar
Yeah.
is skyrocketing.
Yes.
2006 was 30,000 homes. 2013, this is real numbers, 400,000 homes, from 30,000 to 400,000. In 2020, this is now a projection, 900,000 to 3.8 million homes.
3.8 million homes.
That's the high end. The low end is 900,000.
So we, personally, I think their numbers are wrong. Where did this come from?
The United States DOE.
The U.S. DOE, again.
Here we go.
Some parts of the DOE are accurate, some parts of the DOE are not. I mean, the Energy and Information Administration came up with figures last year that were projections for where we would be in terms of renewable power in 2040. And
They were way up.
NREL came up with this, with their figures for what it is now, and NREL's figures were higher than the ones that the EIA said it would be by 2040. In an industry that's growing at 35% per year, how do you get that? Well, you know that somebody's wrong.
Well, the graph on the right shows why it's happening that way, and it shows the price
of
for
solar.
installing
It's going
rooftop
down,
solar
down,
panels
down.
Yeah.
So exciting.
going down. It's going down rather rapidly.
And of course, people are saying, well, it's going to go back up again because the price of solar panels is going to go back up. But in fact, I don't agree with that, because what we've done is we've come to a point where the price of the solar panel is really less than half of the cost of the installation. In fact, right now it's more like a quarter to a third. And we've got huge amounts of money going into allocations in that industry that include getting new customers, advertising, permitting, and so forth. And if we streamline that process, when we streamline that process, because it's going to get streamlined.
What do you think about permitting in Vermont? You know,
I don't know
Mayor
enough
came
about
out
it.
the other day and talked about how cumbersome it is.
Yeah.
You know, we've tried to make changes to 250, Act 250, to make it easier, but it's still really difficult. And so we have a lot of people who say business isn't going to come to Vermont unless
Right.
permitting laws change.
Right.
And of course, my theory is also, not only does that have to happen, but if we can do universal health care, which is a form of energy,
Yeah.
then we're going to see businesses really attracted to Vermont, because they don't have to worry. We're going to have a healthier workforce, and
Right.
we're not going to. But do you know Dee Dee Pursehouse?
No.
Dee Dee Pursehouse is a homeopathic physician up in Thetford.
Okay.
She's got a book coming out from Chelsea Green, and it's all about hospitals and how we make hospitals completely self-sufficient. Because if you go to a hospital now and you look at everything, whether it's bandages or needles or syringes, it's all based on petroleum.
Yes.
How do we take hospitals, and we have 14 nonprofit hospitals here in Vermont, how do we move them toward being totally green and self-sufficient and away from petroleum base? I'd like to suggest her as a possible guest for you in the future. She is a wonderful woman to listen to. Transition Putney brought her down to talk to us a couple years ago, and I've stayed in touch with Dee Dee.
Okay.
So I'll give you her contact information.
That'd be
but
good.
I know that my hospital is also looking at how do we save money, my hospital being Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, which I love. How do we look at saving money and where do renewables come in? Because at the same time that we're looking at getting a healthier population, reducing treatment, turning creating bigger wellness centers at the hospital, we also want to look at how do we become more self-energy sufficient.
Right. And of course, this is a priority place because the hospital should have its own microgrid. It should be able to, when the grid goes down, the hospital should just keep
at the very least. They should be able to keep running.
Right.
And I know they have standby power, but I don't know how all extensive it is.
Yeah, and it would be a really nice thing if that standby power was something that was sourced in such a way that they could say, okay, we don't need to buy from the grid anymore, because that could happen.
That certainly could happen.
Yeah.
So while we're not promoting the fact that I'm running for the state senate, that is something.
Oh, are you?
By the way, gang, she's running for the Senate, but we're not telling you that.
We're not talking about that today.
Here, you can get your ballot. There it is.
But that's one of the things I would love to be involved with the natural resources committee up in. Everybody knows how much I love healthcare, but I have to tell you, this is something that is just so dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And what could I do to help?
You've been in the transition movement, so
very
it's something
deep
that you're knowledgeable about.
I'm still the web administrator for Transition Vermont. Yes, I'm involved in transition.
Okay.
Here in Vermont, most especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Let's see. We've got about 10 minutes. You asked about how do you go from the flame to the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Well, basically what happens is the flame is boiling ammonium hydroxide, which, as you know, is, it's going to be in water.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got an aqueous solution of ammonium hydroxide. And the ammonium hydroxide
you get an aqueous solution of ammonia.
It boils off, and when it boils off, you've got water and ammonia, NH4, in the gas that comes off. But NH4 precipitates into a liquid at a much lower temperature than water does. So it boils off, and the water condenses and runs right back into your boiling medium. So now what you've got is just ammonia going off. Okay? And what it does is it goes from this little chamber into the next little chamber over, which is full of hydrogen. And because it's always moving in the same direction, the hydrogen stays in that chamber because it would have to go upwind to get into the other one. Well, this is a trick that I didn't know about. Nobody taught me about this in high school. But you remember the gas laws?
Vaguely.
Okay.
Boyle's law and Avogadro's law.
Yeah,
I don't remember the
that's
laws.
what it is. Basically, what happens is the actual temperature of the gas and the pressure and the volume are all related in the gas laws. But the temperature, it turns out, is not just the temperature of the gas. It's the temperature of the whole mix. And it takes into account not just, because you're getting more complicated here than what we did in high school. It's not just the temperature of that gas. It's the I don't know how to put it. It's the combination of molecules. Basically, what happens is because ammonia is heavy and hydrogen is light by comparison, the ammonia is going to want to precipitate out in the hydrogen environment because it thinks that the temperature is lower, the pressure is lower than it actually is, because the rest of what's in there is hydrogen, which is very, very light. I'm sorry I explained that so badly. As it precipitates out, it cools everything off, and then it runs back into the medium that you were boiling. Now you'll notice there's no moving parts. You're starting with heat, and you're getting refrigeration, and there's no moving parts.
The gas is what's moving.
Yeah.
No pumps.
No pumps.
Yeah.
No electricity. You don't need electricity, and you don't need to do it with a flame. You could do it with sunlight.
I want to see this. Let's go find one.
Well, this is what they do.
Take a road trip,
This
Tom.
is what they do in RVs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
I had one, yeah. I had
Yeah.
it was 12 volts, it was 120 volts, or it was gas.
Yeah, and the gas part works like this.
But I never hooked it up to gas. Well, it all works this way.
If you had a
The only difference was the source of heat.
yeah, okay.
We are going to survive.
We're
is what
going
I-
to survive. We're going to survive. There's no question
Those
about
people would
this in
say
my
we're
mind.
not in 100 years.
Absolutely.
We're going to survive.
We're going to be, our descendants are going to be healthier and happier 100 years from now. And a large part of that is because they're going to have to, in order to survive, they're going to have to abandon some of the things that they do that are outright idiotic. Like using
Yes.
seeds that come from Monsanto, for crying out loud. Who in the world would imagine?
And what do we have right here in Vermont? Hay mowing seeds up in Hardwick.
High mowing.
High mowing seeds.
Yeah.
I got hay in my mind today because I just helped. No, I just was up at the farm helping bring in some hay bales.
Really?
Oh.
Yes, I
Good for
was
you.
up in West Brattleboro. You betcha.
Good for you.
But what I was going to say is that in Vermont we are tremendously self-sufficient.
People in Vermont like to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, so do people in New Hampshire. This is one of my big observations, is that the Vermont Liberal Democrat and the New Hampshire Conservative Republican are identical, except one of them is turned upside down from the But it's true, you know.
Well, and that's more about social issues than it is financial issues. I think
I think
fiscally we're very similar.
Yeah.
But
also on certain specific issues too.
Yeah.
There are a number of specific issues in which people in Vermont like to be independent. People in New Hampshire like to be independent.
well, and I like what we talked about earlier, which is millennials, because the
Yeah.
millennials I know, they're very wise. They are far wiser than I was in my 20s, and they really get what it's going to be to survive, and they're putting in place. They're in other words, while they do have their cell phones and their iPads, they live much more simply
Yeah.
than we did. Because for me, I was born, my parents were from the Depression. I was born in 1951, grew up in the 50s and 60s. It was all about accumulating wealth, rising to the top.
Wasting as much as possible because that was
Exactly.
good for your fellow man because he got jobs out of it. It's
And then
just-
around the time I was about in my mid-40s, I started downsizing.
Yeah.
And I started believing and embracing the simplified life.
yeah.
A lot of my friends didn't, but I did.
Yeah.
And that was down at that time in Connecticut before I moved up here full time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my son was raised, because I had him in my mid-30s, with the idea that let's always keep things simple.
Mm-hmm.
Close to the ground. So he has gardens and he has the tiny house, and he's looking at his first solar panel going in to the tiny house. He heats only with wood.
Got a
you know.
tiny house, huh?
He does.
Pretty
He,
neat,
he
yeah.
built a 10 by 12 tiny house. That's where
Tiny
he
doesn't
lives.
just mean small.
Is it one story tall or two?
One.
It's one.
His
Does
is
he have a
one.
loft?
No.
So he's got everything on one floor.
Everything on one
10 by
floor.
12, 100
10 by 12
square feet.
compost toilet.
I was reading day before yesterday about a woman whose closet was burgled. She had a 3,000 square foot closet. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
And the burglar was infuriated
What was
because
her name?
all
Imelda
this,
Marcos?
all this stuff that he took out of the closet was fake.
Oh, I think we're getting near the end of the show. That's really good. So my final point is that I've been doing a lot of work with millennials, and no matter what's going to be happening in the
Yeah.
next couple of years for me, I'm going to continue that mentoring to help them start these businesses.
Well, you've got a lot of people in Vermont who have had that experience already.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Tori Wiegers, who is my landlady, got her first solar panels, and she was off-grid, I think, before 1995.
Wow.
And, she was living in a cabin that she built herself, off-grid, and she had, I think, 2 50-watt panels and 1 75-watt panel, something like that. That's how she lived. She had
Yes.
had a battery, and she had a cell phone, and she had a couple of things. Her big luxury was probably her DVD player, which didn't use a lot of electricity.
Well, in most parts of Vermont, we do have a real culture of simplification.
We do.
Yep.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I think Windham County, that's especially true. It's a place. This is a reason why I said I thought there were probably more people off grid than the DOE thought.
Right.
Because I knew people who were off grid at that time.
And nobody knows they're there.
And nobody knows they're there.
Well, that was the whole point.
Yeah.
Nobody knows I'm here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
And you know, you could know that they were there by looking at Google Earth and spotting the rooftop, but from the point of view of the electric grid, they're buying solar panels. They bought them already many years ago from a company that's probably out of business now.
And they paid a lot of money for them.
And they paid a lot of money. I don't know what Tori paid for her 200 watts or whatever she had, but 175 watts. She paid a lot of money. And now you can get those panels for about 50 cents a watt if you know where to get them. And you put them in yourself. Well, we're coming to the end of this hour, which is the news segment. So I think that we should probably say goodbye. Yep. So I'm George Harvey, and this is Tom Finnell, and Jown Bownman, who is running for Senate. And we promised that we would not get political about this, but of course, you know.
Yeah, but I didn't come for politics. I came because I care a lot about this issue.
Yeah, well, this is an important thing.
And you have been so helpful to me. So, George, you're the best. I'll see you again.
I'm sure
Tom,
you
I
will.
always see you around.
I want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land so lovely earth can stay